This is Vancouver, one of the largest cities in Canada. 10 years ago, it made a bold promise.
Vancouver will be the greenest city in the world by 2020.
Good evening, Vancouver. You ready to roll?
Now, plenty of other cities have climate plans. Even in America, around half of large cities have plans to cut emissions, usually by some date far off in the future. But Vancouver's plan was different. Vancouver officials were serious about their lofty climate plan in a way that kind of freaked people out. Even the co-chair of the Greenest City Action Team tried to get the mayor to tone down the bravado. Maybe they could be the greenest city in North America. But it was no use. The people had spoken in the ultimate superlative. So, is Vancouver the greenest city in the world? And what can other climate-minded cities learn from their attempt? To fully answer that question, we have to go back to 2010. Vancouver was hosting the Winter Olympics. They'd just elected an environmental-minded majority, and people were just in an all-around good mood. They decided to seize that moment and set that big, ambitious goal. In many ways, Vancouver seemed like the perfect city to do this. Most of the city's electricity came from renewable hydropower, so its carbon footprint was quite small for a city its size. Just look at how Vancouver compared to Portland, which is actually quite similar in population, wealth, and crunchy reputation. But that advantage was a double-edged sword. It meant that Vancouver had already gotten rid of the easy carbon emissions. The remaining emissions were mostly from buildings and transportation. To become the greenest city in the world, Vancouver planned to cut those emissions by a third. Here's how they decided to do it. For transportation, they'd need to cut the number of car miles and boost the share of walking, biking, and transit trips. The city had a few advantages in this sector. During the excitement of the 2010 Olympics, Vancouver had set a series of big transit expansions into motion. Over the next decade, those investments paid off in increased ridership. To boost biking, the city nearly tripled the size of its bike network. This part of the plan was met with strong backlash.
This bike lane has been installed at considerable taxpayer expense over the objections of thousands.
But once the bike lanes were finished, city officials said the anger mostly blew over, and bike ridership went up. In the end, Vancouver didn't only meet their transportation goals, they exceeded them, cutting car miles by 37% and getting walking, biking, or transit to make up 54% of total trips. Cutting building emissions proved to be a bit trickier. Vancouver needed to cut these by 20%. Most of the city's building emissions came from gas heating, and to get new buildings off fossil fuels, the city needed new building codes. First, Vancouver looked to a popular green building certification program called LEED. LEED works by awarding points for all the different environmental features in a building. More points, better score. But one criticism is that LEED buildings can rack up a good score by adding a lot of green perks like composting, bike rooms, or rooftop gardens. Instead of doing the harder work of actually cutting emissions. And that left a second option. Vancouver could write its own standards, which would mean picking a fight with the fossil fuel industry. And that's what they ended up doing. In 2018, after a long battle with the local gas utility, the city finally rolled out new building standards. But it was too late for those changes to count much toward that 2020 deadline. Big picture? Vancouver made climate progress. It cut its emissions by 9%, but it fell short of its overall climate goal. Vancouver's loss could still be a win for other cities trying to go green. After all, Vancouver kind of made a template for how cities might turn an environmental promise into action, and the roadblocks they might hit along the way. Let's be real. In the race to decarbonize and avoid the worst consequences of climate change, cities don't have to be number one to be a winner. But they have to get out of the starting blocks. Hey, thanks for watching. If you'd like to learn more, you can check out my colleague Shannon Osaka's reporting on this material.
What do you think of the video?